Oh, I gotta turn this around, Billy.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna kind of hold it like this.
Okay.
Oh, we are live.
Hi. Good afternoon, live from Huntertown, Indiana. It's Soarin Hawk on the air. Yay!
Yay!
Okay, so we weren't quite ready for that. You know, we're having too good a time.
Yeah.
You know, talking about things. So, well, as you can tell, it's, we're starting to get ourselves prepared for winter. I'm sure you are too, and our birds are getting prepared for winter. But so some questions have been asked. Like. How do raptors stay warm in the winter? Okay, I mean, raptors are hot numbers, but how do they stay warm? How do they survive the winter? Well, basically, raptors are not much different than us when you come right down to it. You may not think of yourself as a bird, but we're not much different. As far as how do we take care of ourselves in the wintertime. So just like us, there's a number of things that happen. So birds are just basically like us. So the first thing they do is they get the weather report. Okay, so like us, you look out the window. Is it raining, snowing? What's it doing today? Also, I think several sessions ago we talked about weather and birds. The fact that they can sense when weather is changing, when things are coming in, when there's a low pressure system carrying a lot of moisture, which typically means it's either going to be raining or snowing or something like that. They can detect that, days in advance, and they can make accommodations. So basically what they do is just like us. They can go to shelter, okay? We go in the house or something like that. Sometimes these guys go to things like a tree cavity or get into the trees, into the bushes, get a nice evergreen or something like that to sit in, Sometimes, if they know it's going to be a really long storm, many birds will chow down in advance of the storm. In fact, they'll have nice big full crops when they head in for shelter because they know that the storm's going to last 3-4 days and there's no chance that they're going to get any food, so they chow down in advance. And let's see, what else do they do there? Oh, they reduce their activity. And just like us, we're not going to be out running around in the oh, it's snowing out, so I don't want to go to school. Oh, it's, or something like that. Oh, it's snowing out, we want to go skiing. No, instead of going to school. But anyway, so they reduce their activity. So some examples of some of that. There's a couple of screech owls. So they've decided that what they want to do is they want to spend some time snuggled up in a tree cavity where it's nice and warm, or at least cozy, and where they can conserve their heat, they're out of the weather, that kind of thing, And sometimes they get it up into a fir tree. Here's a pair, an eagle pair, and actually there's a third bird in there, there's an eaglet underneath.
Wow.
Okay, so they're all three, snuggled in there in anticipation of the storm, and sure enough, the storm came in, and so here they were all nice and snuggled up, So they anticipate the storm, they've gotten ready, and they've gone in to protect themselves. And of course, a lot of times, birds like eagles, they'll chow down. In fact, many raptors will actually form small groups and will, if you will, share the hunting territory. So they get out there by having several birds in the group, then they can all spread out, find food, and then tell the others, or communicate in some way, and then everybody can get food. They can chow down and get nice and full, and they're prepared for the bad weather. Of course, I don't know, sometimes, just like our folks out here, if it's kind of cool out, what do? You just sit out there in the sunshine. I noticed all our birds here today, we're all sitting out there, facing the sun, and all getting nice and warm, and so even our vultures unfortunately are not in the right place. They got moved temporarily. But anyways, so birds can accommodate for bad weather, or bad weather coming, or when there's good weather that's finally come, they can get out there and take care of themselves. Get some sunshine on them, warm up. So the other thing is, so how do you prepare, for bad weather? Well, like us, check the calendar, okay? So, and you check the calendar and you say, you know, it's coming time, you know, maybe I should think about migrating or going someplace. So they plan a trip south, okay? Now, a lot of that information is already stored in their brain, okay? The pattern's already there. They got the GPS all installed, and so they're ready to take off and go down. One of the things that we do is we pack clothes, okay? So we get the essential clothes, so, you know, we take the summer clothes, toss those out, unless we're really going down to the Caribbean or something, you know, but, so we pack clothes, and what do the birds do? Well, they molt, okay, get rid of those old feathers. They're all used up. They're not much good at this point, you know. And so they mold out a lot of stuff. And if you've noticed, our birds aren't molding as much now. You know, I'm talking to the audience here.
Yes.
The birds. Hey, audience.
Yep.
No response here. You know.
Definitely
Yes, we
noticed.
noticed.
We noticed.
Yeah. But, you know,
Yeah.
but we're not seeing all those feathers. So they've gotten rid
Yeah.
of all those old down feathers that aren't working right. They've gotten rid of all those primaries and velvet feathers. So those things, so they've shed those, gotten rid of those. So now they're getting into great shape, okay? So and in fact, in some cases, they've packed a little extra in the way of clothes, because what they've done is most birds actually add some downy feathers for the winter. So they actually add about another 10-15% to their body, so that they can, so you can stay a little warmer. And let's see what else do they get. Well, we already talked about that. Get some snacks, okay? So you bulk up before you leave, all right? And you know, have a nice full crop, you know, to head off, because going down, there may not be any stops. There may not be any places where you can stop. So, you know, or the place you stopped, a lot of other guys have already stopped. And you're covering, some of these birds are covering several hundred miles a day, you know, going down into migration. So, and then let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, then you gotta catch transportation. You know, we get the plane, the train, whatever. But these guys, they have to catch the weather. So they get there, that nice cold front is coming through, you know, with a high pressure system right behind them. And so they have a nice tailwind pushing them. And so they get up on that plateau of wind, and then they just stream south. And it's just fantastic that you can really watch these guys. So we have a couple of examples here of some of the guys that migrate. And one of the guys we have here, this is Tawny and Jillian. And Tawny is a female American kestrel. And Tawny, did I say Tawny?
No, it's Georgie.
Oh, Georgie, I'm sorry. Uh-oh. I'm sorry, Georgie. She won't mind. Okay, but anyways, Georgie's an American kestrel. And there's about 15 races of American kestrels found in North and South America. And the bird that we have here is what you would consider a resident bird. These birds stay here. But there are birds to the north of us, up in Canada, up in Alaska. And these guys come down from in September, about September time, and they start streaming south. And in fact, a lot of them will bypass us. You know, they'll skip right over us because the territory here is already taken. You know, a few may stop by, but for the most part, so particularly like the ones from Alaska come down and they skip Washington State and Oregon, they go right into California. So they travel several hundred miles more than is really necessary. So here's a little migration map. Yep. See, this is what you're supposed to do, Georgie. So you can see that all the pink there is where the birds breed in the summertime, spend their summer, and then as soon as winter comes on, as it's coming on, they head south. So one of the things I did mention about checking the calendar, I talk about checking the calendar. How do the birds know it's time to go? They don't really have calendars like us. So what they do is they depend upon celestial events, like where is the sun, okay? They notice that the days are getting shorter, and so that's a good indication that it's getting time to move. Also, they probably notice that there's getting less and less food for them, so that's starting to disappear. But also, the way the interesting things is they depend on the light from the sun. The light that comes through our atmosphere is actually polarized, and so they can see the change in the light as the days shift, as the days get shorter, or actually as the sun or the Earth moves around the sun in its elliptical orbit.
Pretty cool.
and then some birds depend on stars and things at night to detect where it is, when it's time. So so there's several clues for the birds to to say, okay, it's really time to go. So we talked about that, and so one of the guys we have here is a long distance migrator. Except he only migrated as far as our facility. I'm sorry. So this is Hawkeye, and Hawkeye is a broad-winged hawk, and and this is Nicole holding him. Her. It's a her. Okay, so these guys, they breed up in Canada. Well, actually, anywhere in the eastern United States, but the ones that we see here basically are up in Canada, and they go through here in huge flocks, and they go down into Central America and Mexico, or it's Hispaniola is the other place that they go off to, and they go in these fantastically large flights like this, and so they pass through here every year, somewhere around the second week of September, third week of September is their peak period, and so it shifts it back and forth a few days. But it also depends upon the weather. If there's a cold front coming through to give them What's the matter? You don't like a close-up? Okay. She was camera shy. Talk about, But anyways, these guys pass over us. And one of the things that these birds have learned, in the past they always followed rivers and things like that because those are really easy to see. Now they follow the interstates. So so there's lots of hot air coming up off the interstates, forms thermals, and so they get up in there. So a lot of times, you can keep an eye out, and you can see them traveling down the interstates, which is kind of convenient for them because it's easy to spot. Sandhill cranes do a similar thing. So we got the guys out east there or out west there go down I-65. Ours go down I-69. So as they head south. But the birds are only going to go as far as it's necessary. But the broad-winged hawks basically they head down south. A lot of ours all veer over, go through Texas and across to Veracruz province or state, and then down into Central America. And it's just amazing that these birds travel thousands of miles, both directions. And so they do that every year, but it's to get out of the bad weather, So anyways, so basically, if you look, and we humans, we do this too. You go to the airport, everybody's all packed up, hundreds of us in the air at one time, or thousands of us in the air at one time. So quite a bit of similarity between us and the birds. So, but, some of us can't afford to go someplace, so we stay around here. And if you're going to stay around here, you're going to have to dress appropriately. Okay, so our typical thing is we start off as the weather gets cool, and we start off with a windbreaker. Okay, something to break the wind. They can, kind of protect us. Maybe shed some water, that kind of thing. So we put on a windbreaker. As it gets colder, then we go get that down vest. So Jillian back there, I think that's a down vest, or a pseudo down vest. Okay, she was holding Georgie. So she has her down vest on. She thinks it's really going to get cold. Okay, so you get your down vest, but before you get it, what you do is you might send it to the dry cleaner, or at least put it through the wash machine and fluff it all up and everything through the dryer, so it's nice and fluffy, so it'll hold the warmth. And as winter comes on, we might get out our mucklucks. I'm not sure if that's spelled right. I found 5 different spellings for muckluck.
Huh.
So we might get our mucklucks out, get those fur-lined boots, keep our feet nice and warm and toasty. I know we need out here when we're taking care of the birds. And then the other thing is we cover any of our extremities. So we might put on a scarf, we might put on gloves, put on a hat, things like that. So, but the birds are very similar on all this, okay? So the first thing we talk about is windbreaker. So how do you protect the bird from the wind and also from rain and snow like that? So here's a blown up diagram of feathers on a bird. and essentially the birds get in new primaries and secondaries, that kind of thing. And these feathers all overlap. And the way the feathers are designed, they actually shed water. It's not because they're water repellent in the sense that they have grease or something like that or oil on them, but actually it's because the spacing on the barbs and everything is such that water droplets cannot get through. So it's really a unique thing. The pineal gland that they have is used to make it easier for the birds to groom themselves. So it's not an oil coating that they have on them. So it's actually the way these things are designed so that the water is shedded. It beads up on the outside. It can't penetrate those. So the first thing is, so these birds get these nice, like I said before, they shed all these feathers in preparation for fall. They've replaced them, they've molded out, and so now they're all ready. And they don't mold all the feathers at one time, because if they did, you have a bunch of naked birds walking around, look like the Kroger meat market, Oh, terrible. So anyway, so it's a few feathers at a time, and so they mold out, and then of course, then the downy feathers have to be all conditioned up and all fluffed up so that now when the feathers pile up against each other, they actually form spaces where the air is trapped. And so you'll see the birds, they'll rouse up, get those feathers all fluffed up, and then they'll collapse the outer cover, and so they'll keep the air trapped in there. Yeah. So we have downy feathers coming up. And then I mentioned that sometimes we put on mucklucks. What was that? Okay, yeah. Okay, so we have mucklucks.
Yeah.
So this is a picture of the feet of the snowy owl we got. Okay, and so got big feet. Okay, just the right size for picking off hares and lemmings and stuff like that and rodents. But now, so these birds have their feet all covered with feathers, so that keeps them nice and warm and toasty. In fact, we have somebody here who has warm feet, right?
Want to see him?
We'll take a look at him. So not only do the snowy owls basically a really good example, but we have our Eurasian eagle owl here, a cousin of the great horned owl, and you notice he's got nice feathers on his feet. I would touch those, except I'm afraid for my hand. So, his mommy can do that. I can't.
Good
do that.
boy.
So anyway, so he's got all those feathers on there,
Yeah.
and so in the wintertime he could go. And one of the things that we rescued a great horned owl years ago. It's probably been about 16, maybe 20 years ago. That actually we rescued out of a pond, and it had gone in a pond after a duck, and it had grabbed the duck. The duck dove, and so the owl was sitting on top of the ice, and the duck was underneath. We rescued both of them. We pulled them both out. The owl made it, but the duck didn't. Okay. So, yeah, well, the duck drowned. But one of the things that's interesting about these guys is that actually great horned owls actually go fishing in the wintertime. They find a break in a stream or something like that where fish kind of come to get to feed or whatever, and they'll actually go down at night and catch. So those having those feathered feet are very important, especially if you're working in a territory where there's lots of snow and you got to protect your feet. And so don't mess with the feet. Okay. So that's so they got his mucklucks on, and and then the other thing, like I was saying, was that we have cover our extremities. And so, not exactly cover the extremities, but if you notice some of our birds out there are standing on one foot, they pull one foot up underneath their feathers, keep them nice and warm and toasty. So that's one of the things you can do. The other thing is you can bury your head in your feathers. Okay, so sometimes these guys tuck their heads and keep them at least the face warm, that kind of thing. And but they don't wear hats or. But one of the unique things is a thing that they have in their legs to prevent their legs from freezing up, and that is a way that their blood is circulated, and it's called concurrent circulation of the blood. So they have the blood vessels, the arteries coming down, and the veins going back, and they're twisted together, okay? So that what happens is you get the nice warm blood coming from the heart, goes down and warms up the venal blood going back up, so that there's not a shock to the system of that cold, so the blood that by the time it gets down to the foot is at the temperature, above freezing. So then the venal blood going back is warmed up. So it's not quite as body temperature, but it's enough so that you're not getting a shock. And this is found in ducks, for one thing. In fact, a lot of birds have this, In fact, even people have it to a certain degree in their arms. That was something I didn't know. But apparently there are some of the vessels that are twisted enough so that it does provide some of the, because, we have these extremities out here that are exposed to the cold stuff, and we want that cold venal blood going back and hitting our heart. That'd be a little bit of a shock. So we have some warming capacity like that to help. So all kinds of interesting things you learn about the animals, and ourselves sometimes. So it's and no question. Boy, I'm doing such a great job. There's no question. They're looking at their BS meter, saying, "What the heck?"
No.
So, anyways, just a quick review. How do the raptors keep warm? Well, like us, take the weather report. Okay, go to shelter, chow down. Reduce your activity. It's sound things. And I know there was one of the things. You talked about migration, and I forgot about the altitudinal migration. We have a thing called altitudinal migration. Here, where we're only 800 feet above sea level, it's kind of hard to do that, But a lot of these birds do what we call altitudinal migration, because as winter comes on, of course, the peaks and stuff of the mountains, freeze up. The prey would either go burrow under the ground, go into hibernation, or actually go downhill. So just like people, people that live out in the west or up in the mountains, if they have ranches or things like that, they bring all the cattle down, or the sheep or whatever, down to lower altitude. So anyway, same thing with the birds. They descend, and I think it's for every let's see, what was it? Every 100 meters, it's equivalent to every 100 meters you go down, it's equivalent to 1,000 meters or 1,000 kilometers going south. So it's so it's quite a bit of equivalency. So they come down. So there's altitudinal migration. There's the typical north-south migration that you get, and so that's one of the big things. And we people, no, we do just the opposite. We go up to the mountain so we go skiing and other things like that. Instead of and again, they check the calendar. They have that information stored in their heads, and they know when the light changes, that the light, as the season is starting to change, particularly when it gets about midway between the summer solstice and the autumnal equinox, they kind of like, it's starting to change now. And one of the odd things I didn't tell you about is a lot of times these migrants, when they're heading south, the adults leave first. Okay, the adults leave first. They're faster, and so what they do is they get up and they get out of there. They leave the kids behind so that the kids can fatten up, so they can make the trip. So the kids have it, so the kids follow on. So a lot of times you see adults going through very quickly, heading south, and then the immatures, juveniles, they follow later. So
That's interesting.
Some bird species actually, some of the plovers and stuff, they actually go out to sea, out to sea, travel, several hundred miles down to the south of Florida and come back inland towards South America, whereas the kids come straight down through the coastal areas, so there's food always available for them. So it's a very unique thing about how some of the migration patterns, they're not what you think they are. So let's see. So we talked about the, new clothes, get rid of all those worn feathers and everything, replace them. And then, so you look nice and sharp for the winter time. And so you got your new ski clothes or whatever, and protect them. And I thought one of the interesting things was the fact that a lot of times these raptors gather in groups, and so that they can optimize their hunting, back on the thing about chowing down. Actually, a lot of times in the fall, we've come upon situations where we found birds with extremely full crops. In fact, we end up with sauerkraut, and it was just kind of gross. But because they've been hit, and then their digestive system screwed up. But we had one that we named Spalding, because when we caught him, it looked like his crop was so big it looked like he'd swallowed a tennis ball. So they do some things like that, and again, they have to be able to be smart enough to detect the weather patterns, to know when it's time to go. They often move as groups, and again, they change, for winter time, get they have their feathers all taken care of, and especially getting those mucklucks in the right size, but I think, but if you go out there, if you have a chance, you can come visit us, okay? You can come see our pretty birds. We have the Raptor Adventure. You can come out and meet some of our birds, okay? And you can see them doing some of these things, standing on one foot, keeping warm, or maybe their head tucked away where they can, or sunning themselves, standing out there and getting that nice warm sunshine on their breast. Apparently we've done a good job on designing these buildings because they get that nice winter sun, and the birds really seem to enjoy those. So if you want to, you can give us a jingle, all right? Or you can go onto our website and let us know that you're interested in coming out, and you can bring out the family, or a small school group or something like that, and we can take you around, show you the birds. You can meet them up close, and of course all these birds are non-migratory. They're stuck with us, or we're stuck with them, whichever. But anyway, so
I think it's the other way around.
I think they're stuck with us. So anyways. So that's today, okay? So no questions. Either I've done a really good job, or Facebook's not working again.
I got a question about Swainson's hawks. They go like 4,000 miles, right?
Who?
Is that Swainson's? Is that about the longest migrating bird? Or is there one that's
there's other migrants, but as far as a passerine bird, okay?
Yeah.
Passerine bird, they're one of the longer migrants, come up out of New England all the way down into Brazil, and so that's a long haul. You get down there, and turn around and you head back north again, and it's kind of like, it almost seems like it would almost be pointless, but they do it year after year after year, and and the question is, are they going south to get the food and the warmth, or are they going north, to get it, and but I think the reason they go north is because we have lots of insects and stuff in the summertime for them, lots of protection where they can eat and that kind of thing. Then they go down south just to kind of rest and get it done and over with, and then they go back north again. That's one theory. There's all kinds of theories on the migrations, but no, there's some birds, like the Arctic terns, go all the way out from Maine, all the way across the ocean, down the east or the west coast of Europe and Africa, get down to Antarctica, turn back around up through,
Wow.
every year, and there's other birds that, like some of the albatrosses, they take off one day and they don't come back for like 2-3 years. They don't ever land on land until they come back 2-3 years later. So, migration is there's books upon books upon books, and theories upon theories upon theories. So you guys want to talk about migration next week?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, but better bring snacks. Because there's just so many variations. Like I said, there's altitudinal migration. There's there's migrants that follow the same track north and south, and there's others that do loops. Go around. So they go down one way and come back a different way. And the other thing is, it's really interesting, is some of the migrants end up the same place every year. They banded them. And they see them, like the golden plovers, You know, golden plovers head out of Alaska, or northern Alaska, up in the tundra there. They head south to Hawaii nonstop. They get down there. They end up on the same lawn every year. They have their patch, you know, and then they fly back, you know. I don't know how to get that reservation, but that's, you know, but it's theirs, you know. So there's a lot of things that happen. You know, how does an albatross find its way back to the nest after being at sea for 3 years, or 4 years? You know, I don't know. It's just amazing, you know. So somebody up there somewhere made some pretty interesting animals, and then you look at people. Yeah. You know,
Fail.
Yeah. Sometimes I think it must be a disappointment at times.
Sense of humor. Sense of humor.
So nobody has any questions. So okay, so I guess the topic for next week is migration. Oh.
Well, we could talk about snowies.
Oh, we're going to talk about snowies. Well,
Yes.
We're going to say about snowies. Yeah. We I guess Bill and somebody else went up and rescued a snowy owl up in Howe, Indiana, and the snowies are starting. Some are moving down already. I haven't seen any thing on the internet about a big eruption of them yet, but we know that a lot of finches have come down, and there have been some reports of large groups of evening grosbeaks coming down, but I haven't seen any around. But it's been mainly toward the East Coast is where some of these, and the reason is probably lack of food. So there may not have been enough food up there for the finches. And so I know we have a bunch of siskins in our backyard that are emptying out the thistle feeder, and so it's kind of like, okay. And so we're not sure whether we're happy or not, you know, because thistle's expensive. Yeah. So they're starting to move already. Some of them, and we have a female, and she's real feisty, and she got caught on a barbed wire fence, and she was very fortunate somebody found her, and we were able to get her off the fence, and so she's being treated for some cuts and some muscle stringing, and so give her some antibiotics in there and
I think she'll be okay.
Oh yeah, she'll be okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she's gonna be good, and so she'll be heading back out, and but so she may have gotten an early start coming down. Again, you know, sometimes some of the birds get a little confused, you know, and they start moving too soon. But like I was telling folks here earlier that about 20 years ago we had a snowy owl here in town on the 4th of July. So that was a little unusual, but birds do things that we aren't sure about. But a lot of these snowy owls end up at the airports and some of the big open fields, and so we've rescued a couple down there. There's some Air Force Base, and there's been some others around. And do me a favor, if you see them, they're pretty birds. Your telephone or your camera has a nice telephoto lens. Take a picture from the distance. You don't have to chase them, because a lot of times when the birds are chased, they fly in front of cars and they get hit. And there's nothing worse than to see a really beautiful, fine bird that's been run over because people just got so desperate to have that great picture. Also, the farmers don't like you driving on their fields. Okay, yeah, so they may have winter wheat or something like that planted in there, and by you abusing the privilege to look at that bird, you may cause other people not to have that opportunity. Not because the bird was hit, but because the farmer doesn't want to see any of you again. So, you know, so I know that on the Amish farms, they're pretty nice people, and they won't go after you. But there are some farmers that aren't going to be too happy with you driving across. And if you get stuck on their field, I'm sure you're going to have to wait till spring to get your vehicle back. So anyway, snowy owls are coming, okay? But, you know, look out the window every day, you know. Look outside, spend time outside. There's always new birds out here. We had pileated woodpecker out here, you know, across the way the other day. In fact, we heard him yesterday when we were doing some modifications on the pens. He's over there calling, banging away on a tree. So, you know, so there's always something out there. We've had, you know, and you never know. I think the best migrant I've seen was a Pomeranian Jaeger, which is a type of seabird, coming down from Europe, or coming down from Canada. Yeah, coming down, come down the St. Lawrence River, down to the Great Lakes, across the Great Lakes, and on to the Maumee, and then down across our area, and heading south to the Gulf of Mexico. And so you say, what was that doing here? All this that far? You never know unless you look. So always look out there. Watch that thing flying over. You might be surprised what you see. Well, I think I've used all my time, right?
Yep,
Okay,
got time.
Wow, very informative.
It's,
Yeah, I try.
You
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah, and you can thank Anne for this suggestion. She was the one that
Oh.
suggested this topic, And I said, yeah, because I was getting desperate, But the thing is, there's always something new to learn, something to look into, and there's, so we're not as smart as we think we are sometimes. So I'm going to say goodbye. Soarin
alrighty.
Hawk, and don't forget,
One
if
to
you
your-
got some old musty $50 bills, you can send them to me. Don't forget, Amazon Smiles. I know you guys are out there getting your Christmas presents and stuff like that. So if you go on Amazon Smiles, you can make a donation to us. And we're doing pretty good. We get about $100 a quarter. So that's not too bad. So, help us out. And then if you go to Kroger's, I think Piggly Wiggly, Ralph's, and several others have the same kind of an operation. And so you can go on there to the Community Rewards Program, and you can sign up for that. It costs you nothing. Okay, it costs not a thing at all. And so a certain amount of money is set aside, and we get about $400 a quarter. So we could always use more money because it costs us $250 for a box of mice, and that lasts us 1 month, right, Nicole?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So $250 for a box of mice, and it's there's a lot of people out there that need stuff, and it's getting harder and harder to get donations. So as far as rodents and things like that are concerned, so we could use some things like that. So so don't be shy, and like I said, we can take your old musty $50 bills, wash them, clean them up. I guess that's called laundering, right?
No.
So we can, but we appreciate all the help you can give us, because all that we get all goes to the birds, and they appreciate it. And all these birds that we're taking care of, all the exhibit birds you saw today, are available to come out to your school, your community group, whatever. Right now, we're doing most of our programs outside, which is all right. It's good for everybody, They don't, the birds enjoy being outside. Most of the people enjoy being outside, and the thing is that I think we get a good education. Also, in this cold weather, it makes the programs really short. No, I'm just kidding. So we'll stay out there. You come, we'll do it. And so for you homeschoolers, we have a nice park here in Huntertown that we can use. It does have indoor bathroom. Okay, so and it has a playground there, so that the kids can burn off some of their energy. And contact us. And like I said, we're not about the only time we won't do a program is if it's really storming out. Okay, but we do many of our programs outdoors, even in the snow and stuff like that, because to the birds it's natural. To us, we're fine. And so you really enjoy learning about the birds and seeing them in action. So I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next
Stay
week.
safe.
Bye-bye.